what we're going to try and do is look from the so-called verticals, how they see 5G and what they see the potential is. So in this session, we're trying to see 5G for business in terms of how those vertical industries see 5G, what they think the challenges are, where they think things are going. So I would like to welcome the moderator, Professor Giwong. Sorry if I said that wrong, who will now moderate this session. And sir, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Sunchul Kwon, and working for the 5G Forum, the advisory group. Actually, first of all, I would really thank for all speakers and to share their experience in each country and each continent. 5G commercialization has been just started this year, and then every country is considering about the business cases, not just only for handheld device like a mobile phone applications. And then all 6 speakers is talking about each vertical sectors on it. And then after all 6 presentation, and then we have 20 to 30 minutes of Q&A sessions. So just also we'll ask about the audience from this. And if you have any questions about that, and then just remember your question, and then during the Q&A session, and then you can ask your questions. Okay, let me introduce about the first speakers. Actually, David should be come here, but unfortunately, he cannot come to here. So I really appreciate the Mikael Fahlgren. Actually, he's a senior researcher at Ericsson, also chairman of the 5G PPP Automotive Working Group. And then he's talking about a little bit autonomous driving or autonomous car is a point of view. Please welcome the Mikael Fahlgren.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Mikael Fahlgren, and I'm the chairman of the 5GP Automotive Working Group, also a project manager of 5G Car. So here I will highlight the 5G for business aspects from the automotive perspective. So we have one can see it as two different pillars. One in terms of the services that can be enabled from the 5G perspective. One is the commercial services. So you have, with more and more connected vehicles, you can then spread more information and entertainment services. And from the OEM perspective, the original equipment manufacturers are the ones building the cars. You have the chance to also spread information from your side. For example, if you have some software upgrade, you can then spread it to the different vehicles, either when they're parked at home or potentially if there's some smaller things, even out driving, if you feel that it can take place during that time frame. So, but this connected and information sharing then typically comes from the mobile broadband evolution. And here, in terms of the business aspects, one can see it more from the already existing business models for the automotive industry. So you follow the chain and a little bit business as usual, even though of course you have enhanced services and can enable more information sharing and see more high resolution videos in the car, for example. The other pillar, so on the other end of the things here, we have the cooperative ITS services. So you have the intelligent transportation systems which can enable things while driving around. So if, for example, can have safer transportation, one long-term vision could be that you aim for the 0 deaths in traffic, so no one even gets injured. That could be something to strive for, and of course, I believe that everybody would be very happy with such an outcome in the future if feasible. Another dimension can be that you overall make the things more efficient, leading to greener traffic, sort of reducing the pollution by sort of a clever system, but for example, if you're able to enjoy and if you're able to not get stuck in traffic jams, for example, of course, that would reduce the emission, you would save time, so many benefits from that end, of course. And also overall more predictable and productive mobility as a whole. These type of services, these are sort of closer to this V2X, vehicle to anything, communication technologies. So here, in terms of the business, here the potential business cases involves sort of multiple stakeholders and not maybe sort of a linear things where you hand over things, but more of a network where different entities are collaborating together in order to enable these things to happen. So I will zoom in a bit extra then on the cooperative ITS services and that part of things, due to the indication that the commercial services, as you see, is a little bit more similar to what we already know today. So cooperative intelligent transportation systems, technology-wise, sort of you have a variety of applications and services that aim to increase, as I mentioned, sort of the road safety, the traffic efficiency, overall driving convenience by exchanging information, for example, between the cars, but you can also involve other entities as well, of course. The CITF services, you can categorize it into sort of assisted driving and autonomous driving, and then the SAE automation levels, then you can dig into more details on different steps you can take along the way. But on a high level, you have the assisted driving part, where from sort of a baseline jumping back in history, where you had sort of you had the driver yourself, for example, you looked around and you could perhaps listen to the radio, but that was sort of the information that you could receive. And along the way now, we receive more and more features in terms of assist the driver. For example, there can be a brake, you have some sensor feeling that there is a vehicle close, maybe the driver himself have not realized, or her, so then the system itself could then, for example, brake the car. More and more advanced assisted driving features taking place, but one can then take over to another dimension in terms of the autonomous driving, where the vehicle instead becomes sort of the driver and the responsible entity. So as long as you only are assisting, it's still the driver that is responsible. So even if, for example, I have a friend who has this braking system I mentioned, so he wanted to change lane, so he turned on sort of the marker that he wanted to change lane, and sort of checked the dead angle. The downside was that the system then only looked to the side, not in front, so actually bumped into the car that he didn't pay attention to. So those risks are here when we are getting too comfortable with the system and trust it too much without having a fully secured system. So those things need to be taken into consideration as well while taking future steps. But with the autonomous driving, then you would hand over the responsibility towards somewhere in the system, because if the previous driver now just leans back, watch a movie, you can't expect that person to be the one to blame if something goes wrong. And then you have the reliability issue and legal aspects of who is then the entity behind that. So I think that is one of the challenges to tackle. Maybe insurance companies are the entity to step in here to take this role. But from the technology perspective, so you have this vehicle. From inside the vehicle, you want to learn as much from your surroundings. You have sensors and other aspects from the entity, and from those you can then do quite well. You can drive around and learn about your surrounding, avoid accidentally bumping into something else. And on the other end, you can learn from the outside, from other entities. So you have the telecommunication bringing you information both from the long range but also the short range perspective. Maybe the short range is more from the traffic safety, avoiding an accident very close to you, but with the long range, you're able to plan ahead and maybe taking out another route instead of getting stuck in traffic. But from the automotive side, you of course want to leverage on both. And also this, when you start having a quite advanced system, both from inside the vehicles with sensors seeing things, you would be able to go only with them, ideally. And if you have a very good connection, you could also trust this connection, even though maybe some of your sensors inside the vehicle fails. So both these two aspects bring a fallback solution into you as sort of the entity of the vehicle, because you can rely on both systems, and ideally both are working, and you're then fully operational and can enjoy all the benefits. Reason we don't see it out today, all cars being fully connected, is of course that there are challenges ahead to be solved. One of those are the technical challenges, the interoperability between different type of solutions, as well as overall making things capable, reliable. You want it to be scalable in order to be able to build out the systems. And also you need to be able to trust the systems, so they have to be secure. Another dimension is the legal challenges. So you have to have regulatory systems and constraints. Who is liable for the various things when we hand over the responsibility from the previous driver to a system? And overall, the data privacy and ownership also is important, because if you start gathering a lot of data, who owns the data, who is responsible of protecting that data? If you truly dig into and collect everything, potentially you could identify that this is your car. We know that you're far away from home, which could be something that the burglar, for example, would leverage on. So it's important to think about what level of information do we need to connect and collect in the end. But the challenge I will highlight here is the business challenge, which is of course one important enabler, because this is where you get the funding for future investments. You need to get the overall machinery going from the business part. And one challenge now, when you don't have the straight line, but maybe more of a network with different entities collaborating together, is of course to build up the competitive incentives for sharing the oriented ecosystem. So from the 5G car project, we started looking here from these value chains of the connectivity telecom equipment vendor, handing over to mobile network operator, handing over to the end user. And from the automotive side, you then have sort of you're building them from the automotive supplier instead, handing over to the original equipment vendor manufacturer, which then sells the car to the end user. So you sort of had linear chains in production here, but now stepping into these new systems, one can foresee different possible ecosystems. And when we started the work, we realized that depending on who you asked, you tended to see yourself sort of in the center and then the others around. So that's one of the challenges to come together into more of a common ecosystem. And I think this work is still ongoing. In the Automotive Working Group, we have sort of continued along this work and sort of connected relations between the different entities and so on. So this is one way of representing it, and you can obviously create other aspects. But on a high level, sort of the business that is needed compared to what we have today, if we want to enable these more advanced services like autonomous driving, you need someone to roll out the networks along the highways. Here we refer to them as network operator. Potentially it is the mobile network operator that take this role, but could also be sort of road infrastructure aspects and people. Maybe an automotive vendor themselves want to step in, for example. But so we consider here in an example on a highway, 100 kilometers, sort of foresee a lot of cars driving there autonomously, and then we assume that people are willing to pay a fee of €1 to be autonomously driven 100 kilometers. This €1 can of course be debated, what should be the right business model. You can also play around with various business aspects, but this is sort of the simplified version used here. And then half of this euro goes to sort of the CAM service, the overall service provider, and then the other half of the euro goes then to this network operator. and some general sort of more details behind. Happy to discuss it in the 5G car exhibition booth, for example, if you want to see more of those details. But overall, we can then see the different deployment costs. So if you have a single network operator, you have the blue line. If you start sharing passively, you get the red line, so it's a bit cheaper. And then the green line is if you start having even active sharing, so reducing the costs this way. And then the single network operator would then benefit from this yellow line. So after around 4 or 5 years, you can start to see a break even, and after that, start earning money. While if you're, of course, splitting, it takes a bit longer. And the things we see here with these models used is that if you roll out the entire system on your own, not sharing anything, but still you have sort of competitors, you're sharing the market, then it will be quite expensive, and it seems like it won't be feasible to make ends meet after even 10 years. So in terms of the economic and business perspective, to make the overall system get going, I think it's important to build on the network and the roadside infrastructure that is already deployed, but still upgrade existing nodes, and then leverage on more of the advanced services where you see the need, and then roll out more and more and building out the capabilities. And in order to enable this, the sharing alternatives you have, so select how much you want to share and what is feasible on your end, with a clear regulatory framework in order to keep these pieces together, because with the sharing you're then able to roll out systems where it would not be beneficial with only one party. So multiple together can then do more and achieve more. Stimulate the ecosystem investments is important in order to get this machinery going. So not restrict or hamper what would be necessary for the market actors to invest in these ecosystems. So overall, the ongoing work is on finding appropriate business logic that drives this infrastructure investment, both from automotive side to realize this, but also then from telecom and road operators and others. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we can just later on or after our presentation, we'll just give a Q&A session, okay?
Okay, yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is should be Wilson Cardoso. He's the Vice President of 5G Brazil and also the Head of Solutions from Nokia Networks. He will be talking about the 5G, how 5G can leverage the agriculture solution in Brazil.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I think it's very important to be here today in this session after we have the previous event in Rio and celebrating the last milestones that we have in the regulation to push 5G in Brazil. It's very important now that we are a few months from the spectrum auction, maybe one of the largest in the world in terms of spectrum that will be auctioned. We have 700 megahertz, 2.3, 3.5 and 26 gigahertz in a total of 2.6 gigahertz be auctioned one time. And one of the big points in Brazil is agriculture. Why are we going this direction? It's one of the main export factors from Brazil. And we start to make a lot of research and development based on small farms together with the 5G project, Nokia and operators in Brazil. Just to give you some perspective on that, what I talk about, one out of the farms that we use for our first tests is one located in the countryside of Bahia State in Brazil, is SLEC. Just to give you one perspective in size, this farm has 246 square kilometers area. In comparison, it's 3 times the size of Valencia city. They are producing cotton and soya beans. And what we are doing today, if the slides goes forward. Just to give you a perspective on terms of that, agriculture in Brazil is 23% of the Brazilian GDP, 44% of the exports, and we have the productive area of 237 million hectares, is 8% only from the country landscape in comparison to Europe, where we have countries with 70% of the landscape occupied by agriculture. We still have a long time to go, but also if you take in consideration that we are preserving a lot of the new areas of agriculture. And one good point that we see from the new technologies like 4G being today introduced and future 4 or 5G is to keep the size of the farms as they are and increase the productivity. This is the biggest aim from the government today, to increase the productivity from the existing sector, not occupying new areas. So and the problem is how to approach that. We have a small portion of large farms, 1%, that we consider above 100 hectares, medium farms, and small farms. The approach is how to go to the small farms that are mainly building cooperatives. The idea is to create here portals, solutions where we can go and offer to small farmers the possibility to rent equipment and have common infrastructure to use on those small farms. For the medium farms, the idea is to combine solutions. For big farms, we are really building networks like networks for cities. So let's go for the large farms first. How the customer is going? Starting from the needs in the right top side, they are looking for increasing revenue to reduce the losses with plagues, improve seeds, improve using the fertilizers, increase the utilization from the space, the sale capacity, warehouses, and the harvest time and change. Reduce costs with the whole life cycle. Serve people that are working the farms. We have farms with 3,000 people working the farms, etc. They need to be connected. The management maturity level, like the whole cycle of production, and also the profiles from the company. What we are doing in every position. First one, the needs from served people is basically connectivity. The benefit is improve efficiency, reduce turnover, and avoid labor penalties. The idea is how to make people to work in the countryside, how to make people to be comfortable to work in farms, remote areas from the country. The second point is the machinery monitoring. Here is how to ensure the life cycle from the machine and less waste time with fertilizer, insecticides, how to increase the lack of information, visibility, and maintenance cycles, and the benefits, the CapEx optimization from the equipment, high return on machine investments, and saving inputs, fertilizers, and fungicides. The next point is the precision agriculture, really where when 5G will be needed. Here we'll talk about optimum seeding, harvest, optimum fertilization, plague monitoring, optimum watering, and meteorological monitoring. And benefit here, increase yield productivity. And you see in this next slide is how we're increasing the productivity, moving from 4G and introducing 5G. The logistic monitoring automation, how we increase the whole cycle of the production, and here reducing transport costs, penalties, and reducing delivery times with the whole cycle. So going really to the case, how much we can save in the agriculture today? What is the baseline for the business case? So the first point is savings in defensive spraying. That's a real case that we're making today. In soya beans and corn, the annual cost per hectare is around $270. So we can save 3.2%. It's not too much, but if you consider the farmers are above 40 hectares, 300 hectares, the savings are huge. That means if you consider only the savings that we have with defensives, is much than the investment needed for 5G. The same calculation can do for cotton, where defensives are also needed. Also, we have huge savings around $31,000 per harvest. The next point is the savings in fuel. If you have a better coordination in the harvest period, we can save in the fuel from the machines for the different cultures. Also, efficiency and increasing machine efficiency, we can increase the efficiency 17%. Putting all together in the costs, we go in savings around 37 to 40% savings. The next point is how to combine meteorological station and for precision agriculture to define the best harvest time and the best time to make watering. Or with the both combination, we can provide in the real basis where we can start to make the localize the high precision weather forecast combined with the weather forecast, optimal spraying window, and the optimal irrigation. And the good point is, if all information is connected, we can have in real time the station for precision agriculture connected to the 5G network with the mobile edge computing in the farms, making the calculations when is the best period for harvest or for watering. The next point that we want to go is the drones for terrain mapping and precise halting. The precise halting for the harvest period can increase the terrain usage up to 4%, allow for variable fertilization spraying, and much more applications that will go in future, like seeding, defining seeding lines, identify treating plants, planting failures, biomass, plant health, and line spacing quality. So everything can be collected by drones, analyzed by experts, and combined in the whole intelligence for agriculture. So with this, we want to increase the productivity by 40%, 40, in every farm in the country. We started this already with 2 operators. It's our real cases with 4G, and the intention is to move it to 5G as soon as possible when the technology is available. We have the first trials going now in Q3 and Q4 in the country, and the idea is to really collect the data and make it available for you in the next sessions, how we are evolving this whole cycle from 4G into 5G. And the conclusions from the program that we're developing in Brazil is helping small plot farmers raise their yields while lowering costs in every point. Infrastructure costs, backhaul is the key element, but we have a lot of savings that we can use to push backhaul to the countryside and the far edge in the network. And 5G is the key solution for the next level in productivity, really to have people using the machines in real time and connect to the whole farms. Thank you very much.
Next speaker should be the Dr. Lee of the GEA Korea Foundation, but unfortunately he cannot come to here. So let me present his presentation material by behalf of him. Okay, the title is about the 5G convergence services status in Korea. It is more focused on the government-funded, like vertical, the trials in Korea. My talk is outlined as like that. First, a little bit talking about the 5G commercialization in Korea, and also a little bit talking about the pilot services, and I will conclude my talk. Yesterday, Mr. Warren and Mr. Wee is mentioned about the frequency auction is held in the last March in year 2018. So in the frequency band is 3.5. Each operator has 100 megahertz or 80 megahertz. The band it cost about near $1 billion for the 10 years. And how about the 28 gigahertz? The millimeter wave band is about 800 megahertz band for each operators. Recently, the last April, is smartphone-based like 5G services has opened. Nowadays, about subscribers over 100 million in the last June. We expect the 5G subscriber to exceed more than 4 million subscribers by the end of this year. Nowadays, only some of the big cities like Seoul or Busan, more than 85 cities can serve the 5G services. Also, major highway in between the big cities, and then we can just deploy the base station for that. And then somebody is a little bit curious about how they would like, because of the coverage not complete yet, but how could the subscribers increasing very fast? I think the first reason is like some early adopters is very willing to use the 5G phone because they are a little bit would like to enjoy the upload speed, because they would like some personalized mobile broadcasting services on it, so they can enjoy the real-time upload the video and the real-time download to the mobile broadcasting services. That's the first reason, but that's not the reason for just for 1 million subscribers. Usually, the Korean subscriber replace their smartphone is within 2 or 3 years, and they would like to change. But why they just change their smartphone just for 4G based smartphone? Because for future use, they would willing to pay for 5G phone too. Well, because of nowadays the three telecom operator is comparing very hardly comparing each other. Also, there are significant subsidy is providing for subscribers. That's the one of the reason for the increasing the subscribers. Also, actually, the last year, the December of year 2018, is B2B services commercialized in the 5G in Korea. But what is their first customer? In the case of KT, it's like a service robot in hotel. And how about the SK Telecom? The first subscriber for B2B users is a robot in the smart factory. Also, in the case of LG U+, and they just nominated the first subscriber for remotely controlled construction devices like a crane. Recently, there are two manufacturers is made a 5G phone. It's Samsung and the LG. The two manufacturers are coming in the market. And then I think that what's real the winning device for the 5G era. I think that not just for a smartphone anymore. Yesterday, the Professor Kim is mentioned about not anymore application in the smartphone anymore, but they have to looking for the new services. Smartphone applications now they become the only smartphone services. So what is the real new services? When this is the first time visit to Valencia for me, and then I just looking for the nice a tour site over there, and then if I rent a bike, for example, could I look at the smartphone during my taking a bike? I think that if we have a new device the wearable device the AR, wearable AR, and then it can be very useful for me. And maybe I can willing to buy the new device for that. So I think that for the 5G era, not just sticking to just a smartphone itself. I think that looking for a new device can be make a very good business cases for that. Okay, let me a little bit some interest about the 5G, the vertical trials. Actually, this project is a government-funded project, so not just for profit itself. Little bit focus on our government asked them about it must participate for the local government, and also they have to involving the small and medium enterprise. Also, they have to not for just for profit. They have to really be solving the really be some public sector like disaster, or like solving the digital divide issues, or like a little bit some more focus on the public services on it. So they are looking for the some areas on it, and then they select 5 of them. And yesterday, Mr. Warren from Samsung mentioned about the new strategy for 5G Plus. They little bit some added on the more verticals like education or smart farm or like healthcare, etc. Okay, let me little bit some interest about the step by step. 5G autonomous driving. Just the Mr. Falgren, it mentioned about autonomous driving level. It's not just for the whole like the industry for itself. Little bit some focus on the little bit public sector on it. For example, in the Pangyo area, it's very similar to like Silicon Valley in the United States, and there are many startups over there. From like metro station to the like business area, they would like to have some the 5G autonomous shuttle bus services on it, and then it's very similar to the Uber, but the unmanned Uber, the taxi services on it. So if somebody is called the taxi and the unmanned taxi is coming to the site, also there are 2 kind of field trials on it. Also, the accident is occurring at the crossroads. So they would like VTX, like V2 infrastructure or V2V or V2 pedestrians services. So they can mix together also serving that kind of the cross section accident. That's the first project objective. What about the smart city? It's very the big project on in Korea smart city project on it. But how can we help the 5G to the smart city project? So a little bit focusing on the mobile CCTV and the drone or like the many sensors on it. So they can through this project, getting the lot of sensors data and to open to the public sector to promote the use of the data and also the intelligence-based services on it. What about the industry, smart factory area? Also, they would like not the big actually the company, the small and medium enterprise, and then the telecom operator, and then getting the stick together as working on it. And then they can make some like a vision, like a sensors on it, and then with the cloud based services, so they check the product is very the good product or the bad. They're checking with some machine learning based like materials on it. Also AMR, so like small vehicles on it, the pickers and delivering some materials to the one spot there. And then also they have the training, with some AR glasses, and then they can help to how could you fix some the problems on it. That's the main focus on this project. And what about the Guardian is kind of a little bit focusing on the disaster issues on it. They have certain scenarios on it, like a tunnel, like a fire, and also some buildings will collapse on it. Yesterday, maybe you can see Mr. Wee showed up some like video. It's that kind of scenarios on it in the fire, and then the base station is collapsed on it. And so they have a backpack type of the base station is going there. Also, small drone can be relaying the function of router. So that can be the simulation on that. Also, another scenario is 5G media. Everybody is talking about the eMBB services like AR, VR. But this project really focus on some the lonely people or nobody cares about nobody cares about some old aged people. They can have a same the immersive experience to them. So, for example, they cannot, because they are very disabled a situation. So they can go to the a museum or or sightseeing to the other side, and then using the AR or VR devices, and then they can enjoy the museum experience or like a sightseeing experience. That's the reason why they choose this project on it. Also, our government mentioned about not just for metropolitan areas, so they would like to push to working with the local government, so like Seoul area and then like Busan also all over our local site, and then the working with some 5G project on it. Okay, let me just introduce about the 5 projects on it, and then a little bit some the technical thing is in the appendix. So I'm not sure about this 5G global event is upload our files, maybe open to public, and then you can just look at the more the technical issues on it. Okay, that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm very busy. Okay, next speaker should be the Ye-Ching Du, as the vice president of the 5G product line Huawei. Also, he's a very busy guy in this conference. Yesterday, he's show up to the Q&A session, and today is the speaker. Maybe in this afternoon, you are moderator for another session. So please welcome the Ye-Ching Du.
Thanks, Mr. Wang. I would try my best to share some good experience of Huawei 5G project globally. Firstly, I want to share some forecast from the point of view of Huawei. So we think that in this year, around 20 countries will start their commercial network of 5G. And in this year, most of the smartphone provider will launch their flagship smartphone. Like Huawei will launch around 10 types of smart terminal, including smartphone, CPE, dongle, and module. And next year, we think that even like the $300 middle-end smartphone will appear in this market. So all of those progress, the ecosystem speed up will make the subscriber development of 5G very fast. We forecast that by the end of next year, the 5G subscriber will very, very close to 100 million. Globally, and even by the end of 2022, this number will reach to 500 million. So this progress is compared to 4G time, it is almost 3 years ahead. 3 years ahead. Okay, so currently we can see that so far there's around 27 countries have already finished the spectrum auction, and by the end of 2020, there are 40 countries will finish this. And currently most of the spectrum will focus, so here I present all of the spectrum of those countries will be used for 5G, but most of the network will focus in C-band 3.5 and 2.6, and a very small part of a country, if they have not enough C-band and 2.6, maybe they want to choose 2.3, like some country from the Latin America and Asia Pacific. So in those several years, hundreds of the operators have started their try. Fortunately, Huawei joined most of those projects. 5G, everybody know very familiar about this triangle, but what is the mean for this triangle for business? We think that this triangle means the 5G is designed or native for the unlimited MBB, and ultimate experience. It's native for the AR/VR. native for the FMC and IoT. So this is the real business opportunity in the following 10 years. So, so actually this section, it is mainly focused on the vertical, but I don't think that the B2C and B2B will be so clear separately. So I also think that the B2C service also means a lot for the vertical industry. For example, in the following 10 years, we think that the DOU, data usage of per subscriber, will start from the current average 4 gigabyte per month to 100 gigabyte per month. So that means 25 times of the data usage will be increased. This means a huge business opportunity for the content provider, for the gaming provider, all kinds of those entertainment industry. And we also think that in 5G time, because of the very high speed, we think that there's billions of the family also will be connected by 5G compared to because of the good experience of 5G, and also some of the small enterprise also will be connected by 5G. So this also means a lot of business, and for MNO itself, it also means some new opportunity. So, for example, this 25 times DOU increase, this also means a lot business opportunity, and the very high speed, very low latency. All of those could be monetized based on the good experience. So actually, such kind of things have already happened in China. Like Tencent company Tencent, they have already taken the low latency monetize. Okay, and for the vertical, I will present 2 keys. So I think those it is important. The first one, it is come from a fish farm company in Norway. So all of the fish farm like this, like the circle, there's more than 1,500 such kind of circle. It is far away from the coast, almost 15 kilometers. So previously, every day, the employee will be driving the boat to visit all over the circle and to see what is the situation of the fish and to feed the fish. And those fish farms, they are know very detail about their requirement, and they also find the pinpoint. It is the huge manpower cost. So even in 4G time, they have already started thinking about this. So why didn't we just install a camera here and use the camera and to just monitoring all of the fish farm and collect all of the data together and do whatever. They can use AI or some other technology to do this, but unfortunately the 4G time, because of the upload bandwidth, it is not enough. So in 5G time is coming, and they use this technology. From this case, I have 2 discovered. The first one, it is the fish farm know how to fish. Not the MNO, not Huawei, not others. They know themselves. So all of the ICT transformation or such kind of job, actually, they have to finish themselves. And what we do, it is let them know what 5G can do. What is 5G is different from 4G, from previous other technology. The second, the second one, it is we found that the 5G plus the camera will be one of the most important application in the application for the vertical industry. Actually, like previously, the expert from Brazil also presented such kind of application in the agriculture industry. The second case is about the campus network. So we in China we do several projects which is coverage the campus of manufacturing, and we do some of the application like the AGV connection, mobile robots, the industrial camera, AR, VR monitoring, everything. So actually. Huawei provided the equipment, and the MNO built the network, and the dozens of the application providers provided all of those applications, and the manufacturers themselves do the integration. So this is a very good model, and we think such kind of solution also can be used in different kinds of like the mining, like the carbon, different kind of scenario. But now we also found the most difficult things. It is we still not finish the organization of the solution. For the campus, include, for example, the functionality, for example, very high speed but very low latency and very high uplink bandwidth. So this is the one of the feature of the campus scenario. The second one, it is something like the network deployment, like the PIM configuration, and the ecosystem include the very low cost terminal. And the cloud, private cloud solution, and so on. So actually, I want to say that this kind of scenario, it will means very, very big business opportunity. But currently, the problem it is the solution is not ready. Not only just the product, even in the standard part, also not finished. So we will still have a lot of job to do in release 16 and 17. Okay, and in China, actually, we cooperation with MNO as under the leader of China MIIT and CICT. All of the government regular. So we like yesterday, Madam Wang Zixin said that in China we have dozens of cities have already started the trial 5G system, and based on this platform, we also doing a lot of the 5G service. So even we collect. Lot of 5G use case, for example, 5G in smart grid, 5G in smart manufacturing, in some media area also. So I think such kind of activity will push the 5G application more and more mature and make some real business model. And of course, Huawei also will collect all of those experience and the resource, especially the resource, include the application provider, all of these resources together and share in the global market. So that's why we established what we call the X Lab to collect all of those partner together to discussion and share experience and to especially share the global market. Okay, currently Huawei have already got more than 40 commercial contracts globally. And so actually this data is changing every day, and actually exactly this data should be 46, and we have already delivered more than 100,000 base stations globally. In Spain, I want to see Spain. It is like the second homeland of Huawei, and we in Europe I want to say we start from Spain. So we have a lot of first doing in Spain. For example, we in the early of 2018 we got the first 5G call with Vodafone, and actually in Vodafone company we have already launched 5G in more than 15 cities. This is a commercial launch in Spain. And we also have the real cooperation with Orange and Telefonica. And in the project of Red Dot ES, this is a project of Spain, so we also got a very good result that we are participating in both of the award project. In all of those projects, we are provided the faster time to market, and we enabling more than 60 user cases of 5G. After we build the commercial network, and then we have the playground for the future 5G business development. I hope we can share all of the experience and resources to the global market. Thank you very much.
Okay, next speaker is Yoko Kurosawa, and she is now the Deputy General Manager of Next Generation Network Development in KDDI. She also has been engaged in the 5G field trial since the year 2017. Okay, please welcome to the...
Thanks so much. Okay, thank you, Mr. Guen. So, introduce me. So my name is Yoko Kurosawa of KDDI Corporation. So today I'd like to introduce KDDI's effort to how to make a business using a 5G technology with vertical partners, entitled 5G for Business. Okay, just move. Thanks. Sorry for waiting. So this is a basic concept of KDDI's business. So the integration of telecommunication and life design. So this concept is not only for individual customers, but also for corporate customers. So centering on the telecommunication as a base, especially for corporate customers, we're building a new business model and supporting the driving of digital transformation for customers. And in this slide, I direct shows how to create innovation by 5G. We use 3 items. First one is telecommunication, so 5G. And second one is a KDDI Digital Gate. This is an open innovation site. And third one is a 5G IoT platform as a platform. Using these 3 items, so we're creating a new experience value through a collaboration with partner companies. So from now, I'd like to a little bit detail explain about the KDDI Digital Gate. So KDDI Digital Gate is started in September 2018, and this is a business development site for the 5G IoT era. So KDDI Digital Gate provides enterprise with the capability to achieve a digital transformation. So with design thinking and lean agile methods, business partners can effectively create a new digital business, while at the same time mastering these kind of methods. Our assets, such as 5G, IoT, and partners and the startups in each technology area, all of our assets is gathered here, so our partner can enjoy here them. So in this slide, I'd like to show how the gate experience. There is a 3-step to experience. First one is learn. So through the very simple workshop and gate tour, so customers, business partners can understand what is digital gate and what can be obtained from a digital gate. And second step is explore. So we, in this step, so we're making a group, one team. So one team, not only as a KDDI side, but also the customer sides, and making a deeper discussion. So what is the real issue inside the, our partners, customers, and making a simple, how to solve, and also discuss how to solve this kind of issue and deep dive into user experience and decide MVP. MVP means a minimal viable product. And the third step is to build and validate. It may take 1 or 3 months, and using an agile development scheme, and so we making a simple solutions and making a pocket trial and error, repeating trial and error. So finally, we making a product and to solve the problems. In this slide, so I show the team development by Scrum. As I already explained in my previous slide, so we're making a one team. So so not only just a salesperson, but also engineers who develop the commercial products at KDDI join this team as well, and making a one team and deeply discuss with our customers. And also, not only make discussion areas, but also a 5G IoT testing environment is also there. So like this, 5G prototype equipment is also there. And as a simple example is already shown here. So using this site, customers can imagine what can be obtained from this site. So far, more than 100 companies visited this site, and some of them already started to making a new business, making digital transformation. Okay, I'd like to explain the example of the 5G trial with vertical partners. So unfortunately, these two examples are not derived from KDDI DigitalGate. So before launches of KDDI DigitalGate, we already started with our customers, partners to making a proof of concept. This effort was supported by MIC and introduced by Okumura-san yesterday's session. And first example is remote control of construction machinery. So partner is Obayashi Corporation and NEC. Obayashi Corporation is a Japanese construction company, and the location is Ibaraki City, Osaka Prefecture. So here is the actual construction area. The requirement from the Obayashi Corporation is that they would like to send a big number of images from a construction site to a remote control site with low latency. That is a requirement from our partners. And this is a concept of testing. So application to a prompt recovery from land sites, a disaster is assumed. As you may know, so Japan has there is a lot of natural disaster in Japan, like heavy rain and earthquake. Of course, it is very difficult to stop this kind of natural disaster. So it is very important how to quickly recover from this kind of disaster, and also how to prevent the operators or people from a secondary disaster. So remote control machine is one of the solutions to this kind of problem. So there is 2 points, and first point is improve efficiency of remote control by realizing operation environment close to a manned maneuver. We use 2 machines, and the teamwork of 2 machines, which is very difficult even in case of a manned maneuver. So remote control is much more difficult. So delivery of a high definition video taking advantage of 5G eMBB capability. So it is very important to sending using upload. So the capacity of upload is required, as already explained in a previous speaker, and also delivery of a sound and vibration to the remote control room, and so on to reduce end-to-end latency less than 100 milliseconds. So in ordinary way, so 200 milliseconds, in case of more than 200 millisecond latency, the operator feeling as it's not effective, so maybe some problem to control and feeling a stress. But less than 100 milliseconds, the operator feels they are actually, as if they are actually in the control area. And second point, we're focusing on the testing environment simulation disaster site. We use a temporary system like Genovi and remote control room, and also the user radio entrance as a backhaul where Wi-Fi is not available. This is a testing setup, excavate, load, transport, earth and sand by 2 machines remotely controlled via 5G. There is 4 cameras on each machine, and total is 8 cameras, and 2 overview cameras. The full total is 10 cameras, so 2K and 1.2K images from 10 cameras carried from construction site to a remote control area using 5G, and also control signal of the machine is transferred from a remote control room to a machine site. So distance from actual construction area to a remote control room is almost 750 meters. And also low latency is required as well in this site. So I plan to show the movie of this test, but so short version of this trial is already shown yesterday in the Okumura-san's session. So I'd like to skip the movie. If you'd like to watch the movie, I already included the URL of the YouTube channel in this my presentation materials. So this will be uploaded in a PDF format in a website, so you can access to the YouTube channel after uploading. So, but I am sorry, this video, the caption of this video is only in Japanese. So testing results, the achievement in the 5G system is a realization of a low latency, less than 100 milliseconds. So minimizing end-to-end latency is required, as already explained. So less than 200 milliseconds is essential. So from viewpoint of operators' efficiency. So the last year we did the same kind of trial. At that time, so we used a 4K 3D video, but at that time, so the compress and the decompress of this kind of video is taking a time. So end-to-end latency is around 600 milliseconds. Of course, remote control can be realized, but efficiency is not so good. In this time, so we use 2K video instead of a 4K video. So the compress and decompress time will be much more smaller. So we can minimize the latency, and as a result, finally, so we end-to-end latency 800 milliseconds in the indoors, so laboratory, and 100 milliseconds in the field was confirmed. And this contributes to a high efficiency of the remote control system. So the interview to actual machine operators, they say they are all as well as they are as in the actual construction area because of not only a clear image, but also the sound is coming from actual construction area. And there was no stress, maybe I'm afraid that there is slight stress, but almost no stress to control their machine. And second example, I'd like to explain about the real-time transmission of high frame rate video. So in this trial, so partner is a TV Asahi Corporation, that is a Japanese broadcasting company. And so in this trial, so we use the actual golf tournament. So they required, our partners expected the increase of camera work flexibility using a mobile network. And also they required very high target throughput. So target throughput is 200 megabps for 4K high frame rate, 120 frame per second video transmission. That is a broadcasting quality. So we already have several trials to transmit 4K images. At that time, so maybe a frame rate is 30 or something like that. So the total amount of throughput is not so high. So, but in order to realize broadcasting quality, such kind of a high frame rate and big throughput is required. And so we make, so it is difficult to cover the whole golf course using a 5G 28 gigahertz because there is a lot of trees in the golf course. So we set up the trial system only in hole number 18, and this is a final hole. So maybe a very good fight is happening here. So we use the 2 hours located on the camera tower. So besides the putting green, and the high-speed camera is used to capture the second shot, while the 4K camera is located besides its putting green. And the video, the transfer from camera is demonstrated, not the broadcasting web, but demonstrated at the clubhouse. So the testing results are as already explained, so using 28 gigahertz and the number 18 hole was covered, and the broadcast quality of 4K high frame rate video was transmitted in the almost real time to the display. So let me conclude my presentation. So expectation and requirement of 5G is very, very various. So it's depend on their partners. So we are decide to taking an approach to deeply collaborate with our vertical partners to make a partners business success using 5G and digital gate or something like that. Okay, thanks so much. Thank you for your kind attention. So this is conclude my presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, let me just introduce about the last speaker, Mr. Darko Lakhai. He's the senior project manager at the European Broadcasting Union's Technology and Innovation Department. He also looking for the 5G technology. How could you serve for the broadcasters like the future?
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, from my part as well, and thank you for having me here. I come from the European Broadcasting Union, and I'm wondering how many of you are familiar with us. So do you please raise your hands if you know who the EBU is? Okay, not bad, not bad, not bad. Now, do you know what Eurovision is? Okay, a few more hands. So I suppose you have heard about the event called the Eurovision Song Contest. I suppose, yes. Okay, we are working on a technology. Now, the Eurovision Song Contest is a very peculiar event. It is a music competition where every country, in fact, thank you, sends their entry, and then they sing and dance and perform, and around 200 million people watch live. Now, this is a big event, isn't it? I will not be singing, I will not be dancing, I promise you. I'll try to tell you why are we interested in 5G. So now, just a few facts about the EBU. We are a professional association of public service broadcasters in Europe. Between us, the members deliver around 2,000 services, both radio and television, and then in addition to linear channels, they of course have a large number of on-demand services, reaching, I think, a weekly over 1 billion people. So the question that I'd like to answer here is, why are we interested in 5G in the first place? So some time ago we have seen the famous triangle, and this is one version, so it's don't take it as a promotion. This is a nice way of presenting the performance targets. And then we looked at it and thought, well, what can we do with the technology that can do all this? Yeah. If you are in a media business, chances are you will find yourself somewhere on that little chart. So from the left-hand side, there is a content production activity, and then something happens with the content and with the signal carrying that content throughout the chain until it reaches user device, and then finally the user selects and then consumes the content. So this is the value chain. Where can 5G fit? So that's the starting question. And our take is that 5G will certainly find its application in content production as well as in distribution. And we have already heard earlier, there will be a significant impact on user devices. So we'll see new user devices, new types of user devices. So the issue we have here is that in each of these domains, both production and distribution, the requirements are vastly different. But we have an opportunity as an industry to influence these developments, and this is what we set out to do. So the first thing that we learned is that these numbers on the chart are the targets. And certainly there will be no network that does all of this at the same time and everywhere. So for us this is quite important, and I'll explain why. And secondly, we do not actually have targets defined for the network performance. We know what the 5G system can deliver, but what will the 5G network be able to do? Okay, so this is another bit of learning. Now, let me give you a couple of ideas about the content production. I think it was a wonderful introduction that Mrs. Kurosawa has actually made for what I'm going to say here in the trial of covering the golf tournament with the 5G in live. Now, if you happen to be promoted to a chief technology officer of a major broadcaster, now you're a national broadcaster, what would be your job? What do you think? So you would need to look at all the technology that is used in the house for the production, post-production, storage, archive, distribution, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to production, there are many different use cases. And these are some of those that I've listed you might probably recognize. So news gathering, we have seen people with the smartphones and tablets, but mainly smartphones these days, capturing content, streaming live, but also delivering it directly into the studio. We have seen live event. I mentioned Eurovision Song Contest. That event is produced, this year's edition in Tel Aviv was produced using 32 cameras, more than 200 wireless microphones, and over 5,000 lighting fittings that were all controlled remotely. Now this is all in a room which was much bigger than this one, but in one place. Each camera, if compressed, would deliver around 200 megabit per second, and you need to backhaul it. If not compressed, then it's around 6 gigabit per camera. So this is the size of requirement that we are talking about for this type of event. But of course, not all events are that size. Now, let me give you an example of an outdoor event, not a golf tournament, but a conventional setup of, say, a marathon race in the city. So you need to have a device that captures the content, the camera, say the camera. That camera is usually equipped then with a little transmitter. If it's a different type of race, it can be also on a vehicle. Then what you need to do is to bring that signal to some kind of transmitter, which will then transmit it to a relay, which can be airborne or it can be ground-bound, which usually then links to the production vehicle, you know, the OB van, the trucks, some people like to call them big trucks, which transmit it to the satellite before it ends in the studio. So it's a conventional setup. This is what people do every day, well, whenever there are events of this kind. What if we would be able to do this? Just send the content straight from the camera to the network infrastructure and receive it at the other end in the studio. Can we do that? Would 5G be able to support that? And mind you, this is much more than having a simultaneous video and audio connection. So in order to determine whether we can actually do that, we first of all looked at what the requirements are, and then looked at what the questions and the operational, what the operational people are telling us, what would they like to have, and then asked the telecom community, can we do that? Can we use 5G for that purpose? If you want to know more about the subject, I encourage you to actually read this document. This is a study, I think, hot out of press, approved by the 3GPP SA plenary, if I'm not wrong, and there will be the next stage, the normative work. So we're looking at how to use 5G in the audio, professional audiovisual production. What about content distribution? Now, just to remind you, you are a CTO of the big broadcasting corporation, right? So what's your concern? Your concern is that there are many different things of different kinds of media you need to look after. And this is just one way of presenting all of them in the same slide, but there are many different ways. What you will be producing is pretty much all of the left-hand side. And even more, you would want to include the user-generated content into your programs. So this is what you're already dealing with. You have the technology that does that, one way or the other, for better or worse. Now, that's the start. You need to deliver it to the user device, and that's the device of the user's choosing. You cannot decide which device you want to deliver. You need to meet the user on the device that they have chosen. So far, if you're talking audiovisual, the large television set is still the most important one, and there is no sign that this will change anytime soon. But of course, you can attach different boxes to this television set, which makes the capabilities actually much more. And these boxes are coming along day after day. They are with the new features and new form factors and so on. This is a radio device. It's got a touch screen, a remote control, and connectivity for different kinds of network, including conventional radio broadcast networks. Obviously, I don't need to talk to you about the personal devices, but what about this? These are the smart speaker. How do we deliver to smart speakers? What about that? If everybody is moving around in the cars and the cars are driving them by themselves, you will have time to do something. And my guess is you will be looking at some kind of screen. And yeah, there are, as I said, for us, emerging formats, these virtual and augmented reality fittings. So all of these devices are in the portfolio of a CTO of a big broadcaster. So how do you deliver to each of these devices with so vastly different requirements and capabilities? And no, I'm not done. You need to meet the users where they are, and most of them will be watching your content in the home, but not only. Even if in the home, if you have a young gentleman like this, who can do a number of things at the same time. He does something on his computer, he's got earphones and apparently a television set in the background and a game console next to him and so on. I can't do that. Perhaps many of you can, I can't. But these people apparently expect to be engaged at many different levels at the same time. Again, how do we keep them satisfied? This might be a familiar setting for many of you. Or that, and as I said, the future automated driving. So how do we reach the users with all our content wherever they are? So this is the question. Obviously, this is the challenge. Now, if you are a public service broadcaster, which the EBU members are, then you also have a layer of regulation and regulatory requirements which tell you that you need to deliver your content to everybody and you can't charge them extra for that. So we're talking about universal availability and regulated business models, right? So how are we doing that today? We obviously use any infrastructure that we possibly can. We have purpose-built networks, but we also use any networks, as I said, that people use to access content. So where does 5G fit into this? This is quite a crowded place, isn't it? So obviously, mobile networks with 5G will be much better than without 5G. Now, if we look a little bit deeper into the requirements that we as broadcasters have on any network infrastructure, you will see that apart from obviously the performance requirements, what the system obviously needs to be able to do, we are really interested in very large network coverage. So if 5G is to play a role, it has to deliver very large coverage, and very large, I mean nationwide. It has to have a high adoption of user devices, because otherwise, you know, we can't reach everybody if people don't use them. We have heard from Huawei earlier today that this is no worry. In a couple of years, hundreds of millions of people will have 5G devices in their hands, and we look forward to that. We also need to have the possibility, this is our regulatory requirement, to reach the whole population in the case of emergencies. And then we need a business model that can support all of this. So what we have heard, what we have learned is, that's our assessment at this point in time, that if we rely on cellular networks alone, we won't be able to have all these requirements met. So we do believe really that the purpose-built infrastructure will continue to play a role. But perhaps we can do something about these traditional conventional networks. So what if we were to include or to deploy 5G on high power transmitters, or perhaps include a satellite into the ecosystem in addition to cellular? There is a body of work in 3GPP where these issues have been looked at. What is on the screen is the release 14, so I'm not even talking about it. It's the existing specification. There were no changes in the release 15. The work continues, and again, if you're interested in the subject, come and talk to me. There is also an ongoing work item in RAN, and you can actually look at what are the requirements. So we are trying to enable the ecosystem, obviously including cellular networks, but not only cellular, but also including other networks. Very briefly, I know I'm out of time, and I apologize for that, but very briefly, a few takeaways. When I talk to the real CTOs, you know, to real technical managers in the broadcast organizations about 5G, they ask 3 questions. What can I do with it? When can I have it? And how much will it cost me? What is my answer to these questions? And I'm hoping that being in this event, I will get some more information to be able to answer these questions. So I don't yet have those answers. But my answer is, in fact, so far rather hypothetical. 5G may increase the efficiency of your operation. And not just technical efficiency, you know, more bits through the pipe. It's more, could also be operational efficiency, or increased reach, or lower cost, or any kind of efficiency. And of course, that is so far the theory. We need to test the system. We need to run the pilots and test the system in real life. And that is not that easy. But I hope I delivered the message that broadcasting and the media in general is a very technology-intensive sector, vertical. So 5G will have to compete with the alternatives. Yeah. And we believe that 5G will be able to meet most of the requirements, but perhaps not all. Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. We don't need to look at it in a binary way. You know. That's okay. But broadcasters will adopt 5G only in those situations where it does something for their business, when it's useful for the business, not because of the performance, not because it's new, not because it is fashionable. And beyond the technical aspects, we are subject to a lot of regulation, a lot of regulatory requirements. So 5G needs to help us meeting those requirements. Yeah. So again, technology is very important, but we need to now, we are at the point where we need to move beyond that, beyond just looking at the technical performance. We are confident that technically 5G will actually be capable of meeting the requirements. The other possibility is that 5G will bring new capabilities, that we will be able to do things with 5G that we can't do with any of the existing alternatives. So we really look forward to trying that. So a couple of ideas here, but it's by no means an exhaustive list. Again, we'd like to check that. We'd like to test the system. What we learned so far in that is that 5G will be obviously able to improve the connectivity, but it will not resolve the application layer. So somebody said earlier this morning, a colleague from Huawei, that it's the fishermen who know how to fish. It's not the telecom operator. It's the broadcasters who know how to do content. It's not necessarily the telecom operator. So the knowledge that comes, the competence that comes with the application will need to be supported with 5G and perhaps enhanced. Now, with that, I thank you very much for your attention, and any questions I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Okay, we can also all speakers in the front. Fortunately, we have 25 minutes Q&A sessions here. So after that, and we can have a coffee break. Okay, let me give you some short questions to some of the speakers over there. I met many guys from the other business sector, and then they say that why we need 5G, because we can do that many things for the 4G technology anyway. Maybe 99% can be solved using the 4G LTE technology. Well, why need 5G? You have some of the special applications on we really need the 5G technology. So I think that you met some of the vertical sectors on the other, with other businesses on it. And then which features usually that they need for 5G technology, or when you met some of the business guys, and then what they really need for business application. Maybe with your experience, and could you share your knowledge or your point of view?
Hello. Yes. So from automotive side, 5G overall enables sort of more, bigger, better, and from that perspective, of course, you'll be able to react quicker. So from an automotive perspective, and sort of me myself tend to favor the safety part, because saving the lives would be very, very great. And with 5G, you would then be able to reduce sort of the latency parts and so on. And if you're able to save time with sort of quicker, more clever communication, that enables you to have more time, for example, to brake the vehicle. And that, of course, can be a matter of life and death from the automotive side.
Maybe especially in Brazil, it's a very huge country. So deploying the 5G networks in the smart farm, maybe it can be a lot of cost, a lot. So if you have already 4G environment, how could you say that the motivation for 5G technology in the smart farm areas?
In case of Brazil, one of the biggest points that we have today is how to increase the productivity. And clear, if you move from 4G into 5G, you can speed up things, reducing the latency. We need less people working to do the same activity. And this is what we're looking for. If we have one example in the agricultural area that we made some measurements, having 5G during the harvest period, you can increase the productivity by 15% only to have more crops crops separated from the field. This is what we're looking for. Also in platooning and other activities. So 5G really increases the productivity in all levels, and this is to build the business case. If you start with 4G and prove that with the decreasing latency and bring the content closer to the final users, you increase the productivity.
Maybe Mr. Du, you have a lot of experience about a lot of you also met the vertical. And then what you're really promising sector for your experience?
I think the vertical need a 5G. The basic sense is that vertical need a connection. connection. Connection is the key. But why they don't need 4G to connect? It is because in 4G time, it is not enough time to do this, because 4G is mostly for connected people. Even currently, 4G haven't got the best experience of people connection. So I think 5G is just the right time to connect the vertical, connect the thing. So I think that's why the vertical industry need a 5G. And the second reason it is, of course, 5G have a very excellent performance to connect the very high speed and very low latency, but of course the vertical have some special requirement. For example, in sometimes the thin connected connection, it is need even bigger uplink, even bigger uplink. So that's why the 5G still need to do something more to meet the requirement of vertical. And another problem it is. The vertical need of 5G, but not means if the vertical have to take the 5G unless the 5G have the very cost-effective solution for them. So I think this is another key criteria for 5G for vertical. Thank you.
Mrs. Kurosawa, and you mentioned about several projects on your verticals, and then what do you really expect of vertical partners for 5G? I think that there are many features on it, and then you met many verticals, and then what they really expect for 5G.
Thank you so much. So the expectation of the vertical partners really depend on the scenarios of the business which they have. But summarizing when I talk with our partners, so almost same views with Mr. Liu, so maybe they required big upload. So uploads are the enhanced broadband, not only a download, but also upload is also a big requirement from our vertical partners, I think.
Maybe opt-in and opt-out cases is very important. And I have experience about the opt-in cases, and especially digital signage cases, and then they have in the bus stop, they have some a lot of business on it, and then they have a lot of cameras on it, there are a lot of sensors on that, and then always they say that the upload speed is some big problems on it in the cloud services. So I think that the same cases for the upload speed. Also, Mr. Rakhaji, and then you mentioned about the many benefits for 5G, but what's the barrier for quick roll, change it to the 4G to 5G or something? Do you know you may already mentioned about some cost issue or something, but what's the real barrier for the 5G application to the broadcasting services?
Okay, so thank you for the question. So when we look at 5G, I think I mentioned earlier, we need to look at separately at the production use cases as opposed to the distribution use cases. So in the production, 4G has found its use mainly in news gathering, the mobile journalists. And some of the broadcasters, I think 80% or so of their news out of the office are produced using 4G. Now, that is great because it is efficient, because this is inexpensive and it's very flexible. But there is one particular problem that we usually experience, and we have managed to resolve it with the network operators, even though the technology would enable that. And this is a guaranteed access to the network. So not necessarily a guaranteed quality or a guaranteed bandwidth. That seems to be easier, but guaranteed access. So if you have something happening in the city worth reporting on, chances are there'll be other people around. And if you're talking about a large sporting event or a cultural event or anything newsworthy, these other people will want to be connected as well. So if as a professional journalist, you're coming and you need to share the network capacity with all these thousands of other people potentially on the same spot, that simply is not reliable enough. So this is the 4G story now. We are hoping that with 5G, this kind of situation will actually be obviously resolved with the different business models, with network slicing capabilities and so on. On the distribution side, well, we look at 5G as a global standard, which it is, indeed. So no other broadcast distribution standard, with the exception of a satellite at the moment, satellite DVB-SX2, I believe is called, or something like that. No other technology is global. So we have European standard, and the North American standard, and Japanese standard, and so there are a number of regional standards. So we believe that 5G might actually bring this unifying factor into the media distribution. But that's a hope, yeah. Let's see.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think in the 4G cases, as now the big hero like YouTube or something like a video streaming services are coming. So I expect that in the era of 5G, who will be the real the hero in some new business areas. So let me have some opportunity to have any questions from the floor, and you can have several times, maybe 10 minutes or sometimes. Okay, it's over there.
This is Chris Pearson, 5G Americas. Question regarding the V2X solutions for 4G and 5G versus what you're seeing deployed now with the radar for safety. What would be your opinion on how those will ever interoperate, or the idea of V2X for 5G can pretty much do it all because it's going to connect to everything? What would be your opinion?
So if 5G can do it all, I think, there is still, before we see the autonomous vehicles that I was sort of touching upon, even though we see them in confined test areas now and sort of maybe in some industry buildings and so on, before the overall system and all cars are autonomous, I believe there are still sort of 5 to 10 years away maybe. But also when it happens, I think it can be happen quite swiftly. Sort of, if we jump back in time, I think it's 1903, and so you can see a photo of New York, Manhattan, with sort of all being horses, apart from one car, which you try to find. And then 10 years later, so 1913, then it's the total opposite. You sort of have all cars but one horse you can sort of find somewhere in the picture. And I believe that it can be a bit similar here. Sort of at the moment, things are being built up. You have legislation challenges, for example. It's not clear how the business model will look like that will sort of drive this fully. But I think with sort of the 5G technology is definitely one sort of solution from the technology perspective, is my belief, in order to enable this. But there are other challenges as well. It's important that the overall society, we need to build up a system that the overall society can trust also, and that it's secure enough, because in the end, that's when we are ready to fully start using it. But given that we have it and sort of can see the benefits, if we can sort of more or less remove the traffic accidents, of course, there's a huge benefit for society in that. So I think that will be the driver. So for now, I believe there will be some more hesitant, taking more baby step years. But at some point when you sort of are ready and you're ready to take the step, handing over the responsibility from the current driver, you behind the wheel, to sort of the system and have the setup around it fully complete, then I think the switch will be quite quick. Within a few years, the transition should take place, because everybody will benefit greatly from having this autonomous car being able to drive you to work without you having to do anything, for example, and can then focus on other things. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
I'd be interested, when we're talking about the various verticals, of thinking, what can we not do with the existing technology? So what's not possible to do with LTE? And that part which is not possible to do with LTE, is that already in the 5G standard as it stands today? Or is it still being planned or researched? What is that missing element? What's that delta? What's that unique thing which 5G brings?
Maybe Mr. Yeching, I think that
I think if I just give a very simple answer, I think it will be very, very simple. For example, the very broadband and the low latency, which is not existing in 4G. But I think actually in 4G time, even LTE also could do a lot of connection job because a lot of connection, it is not necessarily very big, bandwidth and the low latency. But why in 4G time it is not ready? It is because I think because the main job of the 4G it is to connect people. I think this is a timing issue. And now I think most of the people connection job is I want to say almost finished. And in the initial stage of 5G, we will make the people connection even higher. Even for example, like what I said, that the DOU will be 10 times increase. And then the MNO and the whole industry have time and have enough resources to think about how to connect the thing, and especially, for example, like the terminal, how we can provide a very low cost terminal, like $20 for one connection, such kind of a module. So I think this is follow the developer of the whole industry. This is the right time for 5G to connect the whole society. Thank you.
little bit comment on that then. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Actually, no comment for the comment on that question, but I have a new comment. Is that allowed to do this right now? Oh, thank you. I actually prepared a 5 minutes comment to a lot of things, but before we go into coffee break, I don't want to be killed by the guys, so I just want to make this quite short. I have a question to Daco. All these quite fancy broadcasting things, okay? You list a specification which was approved by SA Plenary on these audio things. So my question would be, which are you expecting can be done by 3PP from RAN perspective to be further supportive of these audio things for this broadcasting? Thanks.
Okay, so if I got the question right, the question was what can be done to support this further development in 3GPP? I'm not sure I understood the question. I'm afraid I did not understand the question. What can be done?
I just want to make this quite clear. You list a spec looks like 23 something, which was a spec from SA2 perspective. SA2 normally defines some architecture procedures, signaling, CTSA, a lot of things. I'm a guy working with BP, okay? And then, in terms of support this substantially, this broadcasting service from 5G, and then is there anything needs to be done from RAN perspective? For instance, we'll do some modification of physical layer, MAC layer, PDCP, something like that. This is my question. Thanks.
Okay. I wish I could answer that question, but I'm afraid I'm not a RAN expert. I understood that one of the issues, in particular in the production and content production, is the need, for instance, to have a very tight synchronization between different streams. So if you have hundreds of wireless microphones and you are a director, so hundreds of audio streams are coming to your gallery, you need to be able to switch between them within 10 microseconds. Is that a requirement on RAN? I can't really tell, but perhaps it is. There is something. If you're talking about cameras, if you have 10, 15 different wireless cameras, some of them remotely controlled, you need to be able to switch between any of them within 40 milliseconds, which is equivalent to 1 frame with a low frame rate. If you go to high frame rate, then it's even shorter. So the question is, can the network support this kind of time accuracy? So that is an example. Yeah. But there might be other things. I'm really not a RAN expert. Sorry about that.
Okay, we have just 1 or 2 minutes, so maybe the last question from the audience. Do you have any questions?
Oh, hi. This question is for Kurosawa-san about the KDDI presentation. So you showed some example with landslides and how you plan to, use wireless connectivity. I just want to know whether you derive those conditions with collaboration with the emergency services, because we spoke to some emergency services and they have very strict requirements on certain things and human safety and looking for people maybe, inside the landslide as well. So just to know some more details about that.
Okay, thank you for your question. So as current moment, we have no clear idea to collaborate with such kind of a very critical service like emergency services, because of the requirement may be much more severe and maybe a regulatory discussion is also required. So at current moment, so we are just collaboration with just how to say entertainment or some business or something like that. Is this a question to you? Is this an answer to your question? It's okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to know a bit more details whether the emergency services are involved. Yeah, because in a European project we are doing some work trying to get some information from them as well. So their requirements are sometimes very, very strict and regulatory. Thank you.
Okay, time is up, and thank you very much for participating in this session, and also please give a big hand to all speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you.